Dr. Bustles, Mr. Brennan.
Present.
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you to staff for pulling everything together that we're going to review today. Get into the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to accept the January 7th, 2025 committee meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Before we vote on that, I'd like to dive into a couple highlights from that meeting. Kamisha, Ms. Hubbard, if you could run through the highlights from that meeting for us real quick.
Sure. So we talked a lot about the pig count. We talked about how the pig count has historically been done.
And the PIC means point in time.
Right, the point in time count, a count that is done yearly across the nation, governed by HUD, for those who receive those grant dollars from them. And so we do a count on this night of unsheltered and sheltered individuals experiencing homelessness. And as the Director of Homeless Services, was just trying to get a little bit of education out to the community, try to get some additional volunteers to help out in the need due to the increase of the unsheltered in the community.
Good deal. And we will get into those pit count results in this agenda, so thank you for that. All right, there's a motion and a second.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Dr. Bustles?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes, thank you so much.
If I might, Mr. Chair, I think that it was wonderful that our council members, you all took a lot of leadership and participated in the pig count this year. So I think that also made a difference, the presence.
It's very educational.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman Brennan went out with the head of the board at Mock,
Yes.
Crystal Gay.
On the Garner's Ferry corridor and we're deep in the woods. Yeah.
I heard about it.
Yeah. So we're gonna hop into committee discussion. Before that, Kamisha, could you introduce your staff that's here today?
Absolutely. So today we have Jonathan Cooper, that's our project coordinator. We have Niaja Franklin, who is our program manager, and Aaron Pace, who is our community liaison.
Great, thank you so much. And again, thank you to staff for pulling together everything that we're gonna talk about today and that we're gonna review, kind of this blueprint of where we wanna go with the City of Columbia and our homeless services. So let's hop into update on recommendations from the Task Force to Prevent and End Homelessness, which was chaired by the Honorable Oddity Bustles.
Yes.
Dr. Bustles.
Thank you for the time. So for those of y'all and for my colleagues that are coming on more recently to council, wanted to give just a brief overview of some of the progress that we've made since 2022 when we first launched the task force. This task force was a little bit different in that it was comprised of community residents, including folks that engage in the judicial sector, small business owners, as well as those who have formerly experienced homelessness and have interacted with some of our programs and systems. As a part of that, we also engaged a third party to help us in trying to catalog the number of different services available as it relates to homelessness, anywhere from resources to meals to, job readiness. And that really helped kind of us understand the landscape 2 years ago. And while there's certainly been a lot of progress, as you all know, homelessness is not one that we can address or change overnight, but I'm really proud of some of the work that we've done. Now, looking back 3 years ago as well, the way in which we were working with homelessness was very different. We would contract out to a nonprofit partner about $1 million through the general fund, and they would coordinate mostly our overflow shelter. We recognize that there needs to be a need for us to bring some of that work inward as the problem had become even more challenging post-COVID. And so a lot of the task force was focused on, what it would look like if we were to lead instead of maybe being more of the partner on some of these things for creating a short-term solution to address homelessness. And the one thing that I would note is that this task force is very much focused on what we called the chronically unsheltered. So typically those that are older, adults that may not be eligible for other services. And oftentimes they are unfortunately the ones that interact most commonly with law enforcement or may have had repeat offenses related to all of the different issues as it surrounds homelessness. So I wanted to just talk, and Kamisha, would love for you to add some context on some of the progress that we've made. As you know, I want to also be clear that the work continues, but one of the biggest things we ever, I think, really undertook was Rapid Shelter, and that would have not been possible without this team that we have here. We created a homelessness services department within the city, and I think we'll learn today how much work that they have done already through the Rapid Shelter program, which has continued to serve a wide range of people and also moved several individuals into, almost 100 individuals into permanent housing. But I think really showcases council's desire, as well as what we heard from the community, that there needs to be a targeted effort around this specific population of homelessness. And then we also started looking at the ways in which a lot of homelessness efforts are funded. And it's great to hear that we've made some headway in terms of having a seat at the table when it comes to our federal funding, which is known as the Continuum of Care funding. Kamisha, I don't know if you want to add anything there, but, in many, many years past, the city was not at the table, although we are the home to several federally funded resources for the whole state as it relates to homelessness. So I know we've made some progress there.
So we are members of MOC. We are at the table with Conversation. Ms. Franklin, the program manager, is on the board. And I have other staff signing up for committees. So we are at the table and we are part of the conversation.
And I know that we've looked at a lot of different streams of funding, with some of the opioid funding supporting our work. And then, of course, we had looked at potentially creating a nonprofit to work on some of our homelessness initiatives. And one of the great things that, we've kind of paved the way forward on is establishing a foundation for Rapid Shelter, given that there's been this outpouring of support of different volunteer groups that want to help support that work. So that is underway, which was one of the recommendations as well from the initial task force. And then, of course, there were things that we have tried to address, but the work continues. One being, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this, one of the things that one of our, or several of our community members from the task force raised was the lack of coordination of the types of feeding that were occurring. This was also a time that council was visiting, investing in Finley Park, and really seeing how COVID had increased the use of single-use containers, which led to littering and some of the issues that we were seeing around the city. And so one of the recommendations there was, some sort of coordinated reporting or permit approach, or maybe even a centralized location. I know that your team explored some of that. Would love an update on that as well.
Yeah, so we partnered with Christ Central down at Hope Plaza to execute a coordinated meal sharing plan. We are still continuing to do that. It's successful for those who engage with us. We are still having some resistance in the community to partner, to partake with meal sharing down at Hope Plaza. I would like to say that it has been a good partnership with Christ Central. The City of Columbia has taken on the financial responsibilities for what happens down there during the coordinated feedings. Nothing is connected to religion. It's feeding, and if we have it, providers down there offering services while we have a captured audience.
And if I might, Kamisha and Dr. Bustles, the benefit of doing coordinated meal sharing is not just for those unsheltered individuals we're trying to serve, but it's for the greater community. Because when you have it at a location that we've tried to provide, if people would participate in that, then the individuals being served have restrooms to use. There is the ability for us to help them clean up after themselves, and for us to help them do that with the right type of infrastructure in place. If it is cold, if it is rainy, they can go inside and eat. So the structure is there, and we certainly would hope that there could be a willingness to utilize the structure that's being provided. And we're going to talk about that today, about amplifying that message and making sure that people understand that it is not meant to discourage or encourage any other type of faith base just because it's at that location. It's a location that's being provided as a community resource. And we'll talk more about the other things that we hope to do in the corridor as part of a pilot program, Mr. Brennan.
Fantastic.
A couple of other kind of highlights, one of the things we consistently heard through that task force, Mr. Chair, was there really are no services after 5. That was a huge problem when it came to some of the negative interactions that were occurring with other citizens in the community. We spoke with providers who shared because of COVID and a lot of other factors, a lot of the outreach that was occurring prior to COVID was not continuing at that time. We still recognize that this is a challenge, but did want to highlight that the city has implemented an outreach plan and invested in personnel to do work after 5 p.m. to connect individuals to available beds at Rapid Shelter. And then, of course, we continue to have our 4 pathway clinicians through the Department of Mental Health that are sent out when there is a mental health-related distress call alongside the Columbia Police Department. But again, I think we talked about this at the task force, that, the city can't do everything. We can certainly do our part there. And then kind of the last area I wanted to highlight were things that we have looked into that the task force had shared was a concern, one being the sale of single alcohol units. That is not a city level policy. However, we do have nuisance authority that we have used for businesses or areas that have contributed to illegal activity or hotspots around engaging in illegal behavior. And then we also looked into identifying ways in which we can get more folks into mental health services and found that the state of South Carolina has provided some funding to DMH to hire those private transportation services to mental health facilities as well. And then finally, we recognize that Elmwood was the Elmwood area and the downtown kind of core continued to be top of minds for folks on the task force. We invested a decent amount in terms of partnering with a third-party security company to implement patrol in the Elmwood corridor. I think the work still continues there. And then CPD had also launched Hope and Order, which has resulted in addressing a lot of the root issues that we were seeing as it relates to some of the activity that was occurring there that was, causing some of the issues for small business owners and kind of the safety in that area. So in general, I think the work continues, and I'm looking forward, Mr. Chair, to seeing how we can continue to fill the gaps on some of the things that we have seen
Absolutely.
through the task force.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest outcomes from being on that and participating with the service providers was knowing that the city of Columbia was moving towards a kind of results-driven investment model, really to know that everybody's working well together, making the most of the funds, the limited funds that are out there. I think as you see today on our agenda, you will see there is a willingness by the city of Columbia to be a strong partner for local governments to lead in this topic of homelessness and unsheltered individuals. So, Ms. Hepburn, do you have any other additions to this summary? Standing up the Rapid Shelter was probably the biggest success from this outcome list that we reviewed. So any additional, Ms. Wilson, if you'd like to add anything, Mr. Bailey?
Well, good work, all y'all who were involved on that task force. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but thanks for your hard work on that.
Absolutely.
I wasn't on that council, so.
It's hard to believe that was 3 years ago, yeah. Seems like forever.
That's how I was filling you in.
Gotta love y'all.
And we have a whole department now,
Right.
that's, people have heard me say as a city manager, it wasn't comfortable originally going down the path of I guess I always say dipping our toes into the water of service delivery for things that typically you don't find, as you just commented, Mr. Brennan, being a model for local government. We are not here to be social workers, but we hired one, right? Because there is a need to lead in this effort, and as a city, when state funding is now limited, we still need, though, to amplify the message that those needs are still there for funding for mental health professionals and those who do that hard work. We're here to convene and to just create a little microcosm with Rapid Shelter and some of the other efforts that can be potentially scalable. But we can only do what we can do. We can't
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
everything,
Y'all,
right?
I think y'all are doing a great
But
job with
amazing staff.
innovative
It's been
solutions with
brought on.
innovative funding as well. So
And
very
I
important.
might add that, you know, as a result of all of this work, it was also really, I think, meaningful to hear from the providers recognizing that it has been easier to kind of work on your little piece of things and how there's plenty of opportunity for us to work better together in terms of really looking at this issue as, you know, a spectrum and connecting our services a little bit better. So it was great to, but, you know, I think the challenges still continue about not having services after 5 p.m., some of the outreach that needs to occur. The city can't do it all. There's many different populations of homelessness within, you know, even in the greater city of Columbia area. And then, of course, did want to flag that, you know, you and I, as well as the mayor, went and spoke with HUD to identify additional funding opportunities. And I think that there is interest to potentially do that again with this new administration so that we can get Columbia the resources that they need.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Any further comments, questions on the update? Moving to the point in time count summary. This is really understanding the challenge that is ahead of us. It was refreshing. It was a good exercise to put a number out there to really know the census of the individuals, the unsheltered and the sheltered that need our help. So, Ms. Heppard, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the point in time results and kind of the pathway to how we got to that number and maybe that unknown additional number that might be above and beyond what we found.
Absolutely. Before I begin, I do want to say that, I've been in close conversation with the, chair of MOC's board, Crystal Gay, and she wanted me to reference that United Way and MOC are two different entities. She don't want.
Would you mind saying the acronym Midlands Area
Midlands Area Consortium, I'm not saying it right.
Consortium on Homelessness?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And she just wants you guys to know that it's two different entities, and the MOC is a funding source for the COC. So with the 2024 PIC count, I'm reporting out from HUD's page.
What's that, before you give us the number, what's the area that is these numbers?
It's the 13 counties.
13
that the MOC
counties.
covers, and this comes from HUD. MOC normally, and they will release their numbers with some explanations behind them, but this comes straight from out of HUD. So the 2024 PIC count reports that we had 1,423 individuals experiencing homelessness in those 13 counties. According to HUD, the chronically unsheltered is 334, disabling condition is 760. We had 132 veterans and survivors of DV, 198. So just for a little bit of transparency, I would say that these numbers are not accurate. And I would say that this is Kamisha Hepard speaking, not MOC or the City of Columbia. I would say that 50% is not counted. And I say that because when you drive, not just downtown, like we are experiencing this crisis all over the city. And so you can go to Gilbert, you can go out Leesburg, Trotter Road, and you'll see individuals that I feel like was not counted. There's pockets where they're not being seen in the community. And I am observing the unsheltered in areas that I don't normally see them. So you have Lexington, you have Gilbert, those more rural areas where people can thrive and not be seen in the woods. So I do not feel like this number is accurate.
So, and I just to back you up on that number from having an experience of working the Garners Ferry, Leesburg area. And in general, our efforts to get local governments more involved with putting forward homeless camp destinations, areas like that, so we could actually do the proper accounting. It's a tough task to juggle, transient folks. Lexington County put forward a great list that was given to the mock team. And local governments, Richland County as well helped, because 2/3 of, or a third of Richland County is the city limits. 2/3 is a wide, vast acreage where we do see homelessness is growing to every corner of this county as well. So I'm with you. From my experience, interaction with 24 folks, only about 10 of them would give information to actually be calculated into the total summary of that pit count. So it's a tough order to really get the true magnitude of it. But I think the more that residents, citizens understand, I think that they'll know that the number is significantly more than 1,400 total for 13 counties, may I add.
Correct.
So we appreciate that, and I want to thank Ms. Crystal there at the head of the MOC and the United Way folks for really organizing this. We are going to work with them to strengthen our outreach. That starts now, is that correct? To start planning for next year, is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
So we'll be more involved and we'll really push more local governments from all 13 governments in the continuum of care area to really participate. And let's really sharpen our pencil and get that pit count.
If I could just share a little bit more where when I was reviewing the pig count, and it shows that there is a steady increase in chronically unsheltered. More people are experiencing long-term chronic homelessness. The trend continues even during the COVID-19. The 2024 data snapshot, 30% of all individuals experiencing homelessness are chronically homeless. And that's a 27% increase compared to 2007. The year-to-year changes, 2023 to 2024, there was a 7% increase in chronic homelessness, both sheltered and unsheltered. Sheltered was 6%, unsheltered is 7%. We see the pandemic impact since 2020, chronic homelessness has jumped to 38%. And the trends fluctuating between 2007 and 24. The share of chronic homelessness ranged from a low of 22% in 2018 to a high of 31% in 23.
Did they track in-state, out-of-state, last address? I know that was a question that was asked. Did that come through on your results summary?
No.
Okay.
So my results summary is coming straight from the HUD website. Those questions would be answered via mock. They use HMIS.
So will we, as members of MOC, have access to the summary of those questions?
Yes, I believe they make that public. They just email it out.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Dr. Bustles, Mr. Bailey?
None.
I mean, I just hope that as we, more of a comment than a question, but it'd be great if you could report back on any discussions that I know are going to occur at the mock in terms of, what this means, how we can be a little bit more precise in our counting and what we can do in terms of this data for this year.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, that 1,400 individuals is the number that our federal funding is based off of.
Correct.
When it's probably significantly more.
Absolutely.
For 13 counties.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what, if you just had to estimate, what do you think the accurate number is for Richland? Just guess.
Just guessing? Okay, I would say the 1,400 is Columbia.
Columbia?
It's just a guess, but I would guess that.
That sounds accurate.
You'd say it's an educated guess.
Educated.
All right. Thank you for that, and we look forward to growing participation in next year's pit count. So moving to item number 4, the operational update and recommendations. Ms. Wilson, did you want to kick this off?
I can. I'm gonna hand it right back over to
Okay.
Tamisha because she's done a phenomenal job assembling
I
a
thought I was
real,
wanting you to give the kudos.
right, a real rock star team of professionals. I'm very proud of all of them. You know, the city's budget has grown over funds for homeless services. I mean, we're at $3 million, over $3 million.
And are those from the general budget and different other pools of funding, some federal, where,
Yes, getting closer to $4 million total, well over $1 million from the general fund itself, but we had the benefit of ARPA dollars, which those dollars, you know, have run out, but it was almost $2 million in ARPA. And then, of course, as Dr. Bustles mentioned, we have been really good stewards of the opioid recovery funding, over $500,000 there. So the city is in the business now. And I think Kamisha's gonna talk about for us to be in the business and continue to be, then it is my expectation, because that's what you all would have me do, is that we're being good stewards of the funding that you all approve, and that our partnerships reflect moving the needle forward.
fantastic.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bailey.
If I may, Ms. Wilson, just for some historical perspective, how much would you say that were paying towards homeless services 10 years ago compared to now?
I don't
Was it in the
know that we
billions?
were in the business at all for many years, and Dr. Bustles referenced that as well. There was $1 million consistently that we allocated towards partnership funding. So whether it was through the Midlands Housing Alliance, the University of South Carolina with Housing First, and then the third would have been Salvation Army. And so all of these partners are still at the table today, but now with the combined efforts and now standing up our own operations internally, we just have to look at how those contracts are managed. But I would say, I don't know, Missy Kaufman's in here, she may be able to help us out, how many years consecutively we did the $1 million. That has been several budget cycles.
When we first opened the winter shelter, so it's been since 2012. And that was, but the million is for all the services.
Yeah.
Including overflow, which is
Including-
about a third of the budget.
Right, so since 2012, that consisted $1 million. And then we've ramped it up significantly in the last 2 to 3 years.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
Is that,
So I like that you asked that question, because it takes us back to how long the city has been doing this. And since 2012, we did this. I don't really know the history, but to summarize it, it sounds like the city, business owners, homeowners came together to create a plan to work with individuals experiencing homelessness. That was in 2012, and we're now in 2025. And prior to the city hiring me, we were doing the same thing since 2012. And so for us to be better stewards over the funding, we need to look at those action steps that we are taking, and make sure that we are being efficient with planning, being good stewards, as Ms. Wilson said, with the funding that we are responsible for. And because the city of Columbia created homeless services, it's my responsibility to ensure that that's what's happening. And so now, I am currently conducting a thorough review of all of our professional services contracts to determine which services are best suitable for homeless services to execute. And in that way, we will be good stewards over taxpayers' dollars. Additionally, with the current climate with the government, with all the uncertainties, we want to make sure that we are taking care of the funds correctly. Yes, sir. I see your hand.
No, well, listen, I was thinking something, you must be reading my mind. So with some of the government uncertainty that you're talking about, do you think that the dollars will get tighter for the city to be able to devote towards homeless services?
I think that the dollars will get tighter in how we support our professional contracts.
Gotcha.
well, with that, that brings up, what percentage comes from federal funding?
Very
for-
little.
I mean, we just talked about $1 million comes right out of general budget. We've had to get innovative and creative. ARPA funding is going away.
Right.
As the Midlands, Richland County, and the city grows, you know, so does our property tax base that we're gonna have to pull more from for these services as the unsheltered populations and the services grow.
Right.
So, I mean, to your question of uncertainty, what's the amount that comes through the continuum of care? Something to the tune of, is it 450,000? What was our,
It's limited.
Dr. Bustles, what did they tell us when we were in DC meeting with BUD? Our total funding, 750?
Yeah.
Okay. For 13 counties, I should.
Right, and again, that doesn't
It
come
doesn't
to the
come to us.
city.
That's what I want to be clear
Right,
about.
yeah.
We do not receive this
Right.
funding, so.
And so we've been really intentional since you said that, not to go after funding that's already being utilized by the community partners, because we already know that that's just $1 amount. And if we get to the table with that, it's gonna be less of a dollar amount. So my team has been being strategic in trying to identify innovative funding that individuals don't normally tap into, and they've been doing a good job with that. We are not ready to report out on that, but they are doing a good job on that.
Lots of grant opportunities that Kamisha and the team have been seeking. I mean, really creative, wonderful opportunities for grant dollars. Yeah, you know, and then to stand up a foundation. This community has been just so supportive. I mean, to the point we have to set up a foundation because we want to also be good stewards and make sure that when individuals want to donate or philanthropists, that we have the mechanism to receive the funding, the donations, in-kind, physical, furniture. You know, we've had to look for storage, and I mean, it's a team effort, not just homeless services, but our general services, our public works staff. Everyone, not to mention CPD, I mean, everyone has really come together in this effort and couldn't be more proud and appreciative. But again, it requires partnership, and it requires people being genuine and not, not territorial about an issue that belongs to all of us. And recognizing that when we as a city have stepped into something, it is not to, make it the end all, be all, that we are the only ones who know how to do something, because that's clearly not the case. But it has become a daily effort on the efforts of our public safety team, this homeless service team with outreach. There's not a day when I drive into Columbia that one of them may not get a call from me with what we're seeing.
So
That's just a fact.
it's a very strong fact.
Sorry for all the interruptions.
No, that's fine. I was looking for the number you guys was asking about for,
Continuum of care.
yes, so in 2023, it was 4 million, almost 5.
For all 13 counties.
Yes.
And again, Mr. Chair, I do think that given this presidential administration's emphasis on efficiency, I think the new HUD secretary has also said that he is open to looking at ways in which the continuum of cares could serve communities better. And I think there's an opportunity for us to fight for more funding for the city of Columbia through that. You know, he's come out with a couple of statements there,
To
so.
continue, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ms. Hepburn, any other recommendations to come forward? I know as we move into budget workshops, this is very timely. We look forward to getting your recommendations pretty quickly to prioritize those getting into the budget in an effective way. Ms. Wilson, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We're happy that this committee is such a great functioning committee that can give some guidance so that hopefully when it goes to all of council with budget recommendations, your colleagues on council will know that it started here, and we've worked through some of these issues to inform what is ultimately in the city's budget recommendation.
Fantastic. Any other questions, comments on the operational update recommendations?
So next time, I know, Ms. Wilson, you mentioned that 2 million was coming from ARPA funding. Will you all have some recommendations as to how we're going to fill that deficit? Because that's a decent amount of money.
We'll try. It won't, there's no way to completely substitute for that magnitude of funding that we were able to use to stand up things. But, again, they've been very creative and they're searching for grant dollars and those type things. And then there's some streamlining that'll have to occur with the partnerships and the grant, the contracts.
We look forward to hearing those innovative solutions. So we have looked at where we have come from with the recommendations that came forward from the Task Force to Prevent and End Homelessness to what Ms. Hepburn and her team have stood up at Rapid Shelter. But we know it is still a mounting challenge that we face. And so Ms. Wilson and Ms. Hepburn, I requested that we look to the future. What is the blueprint for where we ultimately need to go to really make a difference in the homeless and unsheltered community? I think it's very important for us to get confirmation, input from a recognized national consultant to take an independent view of the Midlands, of the county, of the city, how we operate with our limited budget, what we can do, and then also the service providers that are here, how we can really leverage that funding and those services that you're talking about. So I just want to tee that up for you to comment on, Ms. Wilson, about what direction we can go with that third-party consulting.
So we really appreciate, I think, this council's leadership. You know, Mayor Rickman has been very much so stepping into what does an overall long-term solution look like. But I think you all also know that to get there, there's got to be collaboration, there's got to be partnership, but there's also got to be some low-hanging fruit, short-term solutions that we've already talked about here a little bit today to address certain things just sort of out the gate. And so the challenge that you gave us, I think, as we now somewhat have a foundation, is what does a blueprint look like, at least over the next 6 months and year? What are some of those short-term things? Always with a North Star or guiding principle of having a long-term solution, maybe a campus, whatever that may look like as well. To your point about having a nationally recognized consultant, Mr. Chair, we don't know everything. And we are doing our best, as are many of the partners that are in the room. The community is certainly very much so tuned in. And so want to make sure that this isn't just the city saying, but having someone look at things that we're trying to do, and maybe you mentioned look at how things are done in other states or other communities, and bring that to bear as well, and just give us some assessment and recommendations going forward. So that would be an initial part of an action item in these steps to success over the next several months, is to go ahead and get a nationally recognized consultant engaged. And so Kamisha is starting that process, and then we will want to come back to the committee once that, we'll do a solicitation for that, and once that process is completed, allow that consultant to get to work and explain to the community what all that's going to look like and what will be entailed. Similarly, while we're doing that, we've talked about a pilot program. We've talked about the things happening in this corridor. Things we're already doing, whether it's attempting to have a structured meal share program, attempting to have services where individuals, the chronically unsheltered, can actually come in an orderly way in the corridor and get assistance. That work is going on right now. To structure that pilot program. And we want to then come back by June to this committee to be able to share openly and get feedback and let everyone know what that will look like, so that hopefully in July, that program would actually kick off and be launched in the corridor and work all the way through January. Allow the consultant to look at how that's working with us and see if we need to continue that approach, but really trying to apply some resources to standing that up. Those are two of the immediate goals that we want to achieve in the blueprint. And then I'll let Kamisha kind of walk through kind of how we get there with those steps in the blueprint.
So, as Ms. Wilson stated, I'm researching those nationally recognized consultants now, and I'll go through the procurement process.
And Kamisha, when we're talking about these nationally recognized consultants, there's a couple of things that, I want to highlight that is particularly important so that we get information that's meaningful. Going through the exercise a couple of years ago of just simply trying to catalog all of the homeless services that existed, I think that this consultant needs to be able to have a really intimate understanding of all the players at the table, be here physically, get to know, some of those players, and then also recognize some of the financial limitations that we may have compared to, other states that they may work with. And then also the structural limitations of, City of Columbia does not have its own continuum of care. It's with 13 other counties. And so just really making sure we bring that out in the procurement process so you all get the information that you need and that there's less, I don't want to say like pushback, but hesitation of others feeling that this was an accurate representation of all of the things that are happening in our city.
Yes, ma'am.
Great points.
So, I lost my train of thought, Dr. Bustle, but I'm back, I'm tracking back.
It's a good point, though, that Dr. Bustles is making, and I think the reason behind, getting to a point to have a third party involved, because it's not, again, it's everyone's issue. It's not territorial, it's not personal. It is meant to have, so if it needs a third party to come in to our community to help navigate everybody's input, everybody's being included, but also to just be real about what is happening and have somebody else to come in and help us all come to the table on that, then we're here for that. The transparency is what we're wanting.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a good point, because it's not about us. So when we bring that consultant in, we want the real picture so that we know what we have to bring together and be innovative. The community liaison is currently working on some communications for partners, so that we can talk about what those things would look like. I think Ms. Wilson explained it all well. I feel like I'm gonna be repeating everything you said.
Well, maybe hit the day. I want people to understand, today we're just sort of giving kind of an overview of what we would like to see happen. And that, in June, we would.
Okay, so, the step-by-step blueprint. So for, June of this year, we will revamp the corridor initiative as a comprehensive pilot program and share that structure within the, ad hoc committee meeting. Additionally, the community liaison will have, information to report out on what partners are to the table with us and willing to work with us and what we have created, for, a coordinated intake place, for the lack of words right now. And in July, we will begin implementing the pilot program. We will, transparently communicate the benefits and challenges to all stakeholders. And I think that's important that we are, communicating this to the providers, to, business owners, and to, just our neighbors, so that they understand what we're doing, that they understand it's not gonna be a overnight fix, that we will have some challenges, and we'll talk about those challenges transparently. And all those things will be happening in July. In August, I would have already, secured a consultant, and they'll present to the ad hoc committee about their comprehensive assessment of homeless services, available resources, and the overall capacity, in the city of Columbia. We will use the consultant's recommendation to implement a strategic plan to improve service effectiveness and to address, gaps in service. In November 2025, Homeless Services will begin to implement the consultant's findings, and will provide an update at that time on the pilot program. And if appropriate, we would use the consultant's recommendation to formalize the program.
And, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So I'm clear, the consultant will be used to help develop the pilot program, or is it more so being used to take an overall, survey of homeless services in Columbia and internal in the city of Columbia?
The overall look at homeless services in Columbia, to include all of the services, all of the resources, and any gaps.
So we feel like the pilot program, there's some things we know, everybody knows, what you're seeing, what additional things, what additional tools in the toolbox can we stand up? So we're working on that now, and we would love for the consultant, obviously, to also take a look at it once we've gotten it up and running. But we feel like that's the necessary next step, Councilman, to move forward with that pilot. But we want to bring it back once the structure is solidified over the next 30 days or so, 30 to 60 days, bring it back and start it in July.
Okay, that makes sense. And with the consultant, while we're doing the search, is there any chance that while we're, selecting our parameters that we want the consultant to look into, that we could decide that we don't want to hire a consultant? Or is this something that we believe we need to get, a good overview of our services done?
Well, I think, that's something, some guidance from this committee and all of council that I thought we got, that, having that third party transparency is a good thing to help us
And to Ms.
communicate.
Wilson's point,
Yeah.
we're not in the business of homeless services management. This third-party professional is a verification that we're trending in the right direction, and to really help us bring in partners for a successful format to move forward. And that's other local governments as well. We hope other local governments pull up a seat and help us. We don't want to be the driving force. We want the professionals locally to team with us for our path forward. So it is, the consultant is there to verify that we're moving in the right direction and help us really put some guide rails in place. Because the biggest thing is we got a limited budget. What can we do with the budget we're on, So we don't want to overpromise on delivering with the limited funds we have from general budget. Also asked Ms. Wilson, the consultant, take a look at state funding that should be available, for this, not just locally for us, but statewide to tackle this homeless issue. What can our state delegations really do for us to help us tackle this problem? So that's something we hope that we'll get some good case studies. What are other state legislatures doing to really help with that issue? So I think just a lot to be learned from a third party to help us in our decision making as a local government.
And they'll be neutral.
Be neutral. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited.
So that's the stair step for the next 4 meetings, June, July, and August, and in November.
Right.
So I look forward to getting those updates in June and our path forward with our consultant and the ongoing work in progress of the corridor initiative. It is ongoing, so we will get a lot of input from surrounding neighborhoods, service providers, and other groups. So if there's no other questions, comments, y'all, Dr. Bustles, Mr. Bailey, do you have anything else before we move on to our executive session item? Ms. Wilson, again, Ms. Hepburn, thank you so much for your team pulling all this together. We look forward to seeing this through.
Yes, sir.
All right. With that said, is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for us to enter into executive session for receipt of legal advice relating to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A2, homeless services.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Dr. Bustles?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hang on.